All right, so you're looking to understand this Lakurawa group that's been making headlines in Nigeria.
Right.
We've got a stack of news articles and reports here. Yeah. And honestly, some of this stuff is pretty chilling.
Oh, yeah.
Let's dive in and see if we can kind of make sense of who these guys are, what they want, and just how worried we should be.
You know what's striking is how rapidly they've emerged.
Mm-hmm.
In a region already grappling with ISWAP,
right?
The Islamic State's West Africa branch.
Yeah.
This isn't just a bunch of bandits, you know?
Right.
Lakurawa seems to be strategically exploiting every bit of chaos in the region.
Wow.
And their connection to ISWAP.
Right.
Well, that adds a whole other layer of concern, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's not exactly comforting.
Right.
The reports pinpoint their rise in northwestern Nigeria, specifically Sokoto State.
Right.
And the timing with that military coup in Niger, it can't be a coincidence.
It certainly seems like they seized that opportunity.
Okay.
The coup threw everything into disarray, disrupted that cross-border security cooperation.
Yeah.
Suddenly there's this power vacuum.
Right.
And groups like Lakurawa are experts at exploiting those.
Yeah.
It's a classic move for extremist organizations. Thrive on chaos.
Right.
Exploit weak governance.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat.
Okay, but here's where it gets really wild.
Yep.
The reports say they didn't just pop up locally. They infiltrated from neighboring Niger and Mali, pulling in members from all kinds of backgrounds.
Wow.
And get this, some communities actually welcomed them at first.
Really?
They thought Lakurawa would help fight banditry. Talk about misjudging the new neighbors.
That initial perception is key to understanding their strategy.
Okay.
They're not just thugs with guns.
Right.
They're playing the long game. It's likely they presented themselves as protectors to get a foothold. Kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? It's a tactic we've seen with other extremist groups.
Yeah.
Exploit pre-existing grievances, offer a simple solution, then bam, reveal the true agenda later.
And that agenda is getting clearer by the day.
Yeah.
We're seeing them enforce strict Sharia law.
Right.
Punishing people for the smallest things.
Wow.
Like listening to music or not dressing a certain way. It's like they're trying to turn the clock back centuries, but with a very 21st century brutality.
This points to their ultimate objective.
Okay.
Which aligns with that broader jihadist ideology.
Right.
Establishing an Islamic State. Governed by their extreme interpretation of Sharia.
Right.
Enforcing these laws is all about control.
Yeah.
Signaling their power and authority. They're not just trying to win hearts and minds.
Right.
They're trying to dominate them.
And to fund this whole operation, they've gotten pretty creative with their taxes. They're demanding 2.5% of wealth from anyone they deem rich, plus levies on agricultural produce.
Wow.
They're even taking advantage of zakah,
right,
the Islamic tradition of almsgiving, turning it into a system of extortion, like a mafia with a religious veneer.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's crucial to understand that these taxes aren't just about money.
Right.
It's about power. They're weakening existing structures.
Right.
And making people dependent on their system.
Wow.
It's a calculated move to control the local economy.
Yeah.
And by extension, the people.
And if the taxes don't get you, the sheer brutality of their tactics.
Oh, yeah.
One detail that sent chills down my spine.
Oh, wow.
They're forcing parents to marry off their daughters to group members.
Really?
Over 10 documented cases already.
Wow.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
This isn't just exploitation, it's a calculated strategy.
This raises a crucial question about their long-term goals.
Yeah.
Forced marriage plays right into their twisted plans.
Right.
It's a way to recruit new members, control families through fear, indoctrinate the next generation.
Wow.
The impact on these girls and their communities is absolutely devastating.
And if anyone dares to resist, Lakurawa isn't afraid to show just how ruthless they can be.
Oh, yeah.
Take that recent attack in Kebbi State, for example.
Okay.
Locals tried to stop them from stealing cattle, and at least 15 people ended up dead.
Oh, wow.
It's a chilling reminder that they're not just playing dress-up with their Sharia law.
Right.
They're willing to kill to enforce it.
That incident is a stark illustration of Lakurawa's willingness to use violence, and increasingly lethal violence, to maintain control.
Wow.
It's a clear message to the population.
Right.
Submit or face the consequences. They're operating with a level of impunity that's truly alarming.
So you can imagine what this is doing to local communities.
Right.
They went from welcoming these guys as potential saviors to living in absolute terror.
Right.
The reports say many people now consider Lakurawa more dangerous than the government.
Oh.
Talk about a vote of no confidence.
That's...
What does that tell us about the situation on the ground?
That's a chilling sign of a breakdown in governance and security. When a terrorist group becomes the dominant force.
Yeah.
When they're more feared than the government itself.
Right.
It points to a severe erosion of state authority.
Right.
This isn't just a problem for Nigeria.
Uh-huh.
It's a dangerous trend for the entire region.
And it's not just brute force they're using.
Right.
They're weaving themselves into the fabric of society, exploiting existing grievances to recruit new members. The reports describe them approaching locals to help patrol villages or identify wrongdoers. It's like they're offering a twisted sense of belonging and purpose to those who feel lost or abandoned.
This tactic is particularly insidious.
Yeah.
Because it blurs the lines between victim and perpetrator.
Right.
You're not just fighting an external enemy anymore.
Huh.
You're trying to disentangle a threat that's embedded within the community itself.
Wow.
Imagine trying to track ghosts in a jungle.
Right.
That's what our troops were up against.
Speaking of the troops, the Nigerian military says they're committed to dismantling Lakurawa's networks and restoring security.
Right.
Major General Edward Buba's been pretty vocal about their efforts, talking about intelligence gathering and surveillance operations to track the group's movements.
Right.
But with this kind of terrain, it's got to be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Right. It's a monumental task, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
The terrain is challenging.
Right.
And Lakurawa is adept at operating in the shadows. They're like chameleons, blending into the background, making it incredibly difficult to pin them down.
Right.
But there's another layer of complexity here.
Okay.
Local support.
Yeah.
Even if that initial trust has eroded, some might still see Lakurawa as the lesser of two evils.
Right. Better the devil, you know, than the bandits.
Right.
Or a corrupt government you don't.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation for the military. How do you fight an enemy that's potentially hiding in plain sight?
Yep.
Maybe even protected by the very people you're trying to liberate.
It requires a delicate dance, that's for sure. Any military action has to consider the potential for civilian casualties.
Right.
And the risk of pushing people further into Lakurawa's arms.
Yeah.
Heavy-handed tactics could backfire and actually bolster their narrative of being the only true protectors.
Right.
It's a tightrope walk.
Yeah.
And the consequences of a misstep are enormous.
And let's not forget the underlying issue.
Right.
Their ideology.
Yeah.
It preys on those who feel disillusioned by the government's failures. When people are desperate for security, for basic services, for a sense of hope, extremist ideologies can start to sound appealing. It's like a virus that thrives in the wounds of a broken society.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Bullets and bombs alone won't solve this problem.
Right.
We need to address the root causes. Poverty, inequality.
Right.
Corruption.
Right.
The lack of opportunity. The feeling of being forgotten.
Yeah.
These are the fertile grounds where groups like Lakurawa take root.
Right.
If we want to stop them, we need to heal the wounds that allow them to flourish.
Yeah.
It's not just about winning a war.
Right.
It's about building a future where groups like Lakurawa can't even exist.
Okay, so we've got this new, incredibly dangerous group with ties to ISIS, exploiting every bit of instability they can find.
Right.
They're using brutal tactics,
Yeah.
clever recruitment strategies, and a warped ideology to carve out their own little empire.
Wow.
The military's fighting back, but it's an uphill battle, to say the least.
Yeah.
So what now?
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've laid out the problem.
Right.
Now we need to explore potential solutions.
Okay.
We've got to figure out what strategies might actually work to counter this threat. Not just for today, but for the long haul.
Right.
Because Lakurawa is a symptom of a much deeper issue.
Yeah.
And if we don't address the root causes, who's to say another group won't just pop up in its place?
Right.
We've got a lot to unpack. But luckily, that's what we do best here on the Deep Dive.
All right, sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
We'll be right back to dig into potential solutions after a quick word from our sponsors.
Okay, so we've established that Lakurawa is a serious problem,
Yeah.
to put it mildly.
Right.
But knowing the problem is only half the battle, right?
Absolutely.
Now we've got to figure out
Yeah.
how to solve it.
Right.
Where do we even begin?
That's the challenge with a group like this.
Yeah,
There's no silver bullet.
right.
We're going to need a multi-pronged strategy
Okay,
that addresses both the immediate security threat.
right. And those deep-rooted issues
Mm,
that allow groups like Lakurawa to thrive.
right.
Think of it like a weed.
Okay.
You can't just chop off the top.
Yeah.
Got to get the roots too.
All right, so let's dig into those prongs.
Yeah.
What needs to happen right now on the ground to stop this group from gaining even more power?
First and foremost,
Okay.
we need to ramp up intelligence gathering
Right.
and surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like trying to solve a puzzle in the dark. We need to shed light on their movements, their networks, their funding sources.
Right.
This information is vital to disrupting their operations
Yeah.
and targeting them effectively.
And the military is already working on that, right?
Absolutely.
We talked about their efforts in the last segment.
Yeah,
But it can't be easy in that kind of terrain.
absolutely. Traditional military tactics might not cut it. We might need to consider more specialized units,
Right.
troops trained in counterinsurgency operations,
Yep.
folks who can operate effectively in these tough environments.
Right.
They need the skills and the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
to combat a group like Lakurawa on its own turf.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
But we also talked about how Lakurawa has embedded itself within communities,
right.
exploiting existing grievances to win over locals.
Uh-huh.
How do you fight that without turning the very people you're trying to protect against you?
That's where community engagement becomes critical.
Okay.
It's not enough to just show force.
Right.
You have to win hearts and minds.
Oh,
Building trust with local populations
yeah.
is absolutely essential to any successful counterterrorism strategy. It's about proving to people that the government is a better alternative,
Right.
a more reliable protector than Lakurawa could ever be.
Easier said than done, right?
Oh, yeah,
Especially when Lakurawa is playing on immediate fears,
right.
promising security and solutions that the government hasn't been able to deliver.
It's a delicate balance. We need to show that the government can provide the security people crave,
Okay.
crack down on banditry,
Uh-huh.
hold corrupt officials accountable,
Yeah.
basically demonstrate that the state is capable and willing
Right.
to protect its citizens.
Right.
Actions speak louder than words in this situation.
So prove they're the better option.
Right.
But that takes time.
Yeah.
And time is a luxury we don't have
Right.
when Lakurawa is actively exploiting those fears and grievances.
Exactly. That's why we also need to expose Lakurawa's true nature. Rip away that mask of piety
Right.
and reveal the cruelty underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Highlight their brutality, their hypocrisy,
Right.
the fact that they're ultimately a threat to everyone.
We've seen those reports about the forced marriages, the harsh punishments,
Right.
the attacks on anyone who resists. That information needs to reach the people.
Right.
We need to dismantle their propaganda.
Yeah.
Show them the reality of what life under Lakurawa truly means.
Right. Counter messaging is vital.
Yeah.
We need to offer a compelling alternative
Yeah.
to their ideology.
Right.
Something that resonates with people, something that speaks to hope and progress,
Right.
not fear and oppression.
Okay.
An ideology that emphasizes peace,
Right.
tolerance, and inclusive governance.
But that message of hope is only going to land if people actually believe in it. We keep coming back to these underlying issues.
Right.
Poverty, inequality, lack of opportunity.
Yeah.
It's like a breeding ground for extremism.
And that's where development initiatives come into play.
Okay.
Investing in education, healthcare,
Right.
job creation.
Yeah.
These are long-term solutions, absolutely.
Right.
But they're essential for addressing the root causes of extremism. If you want to drain the swamp,
Right.
you can't just focus on the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
You have to change the environment that breeds them.
So it sounds like we're talking about a four-pronged attack.
Right.
Counter-messaging, development.
Exactly.
It sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is.
Wow.
And it requires coordination between different agencies, government,
Right.
civil society,
Uh-huh.
local leaders.
Yeah.
This is an all-hands-on-deck situation.
And what about lessons learned? I mean, haven't we seen this kind of thing play out in other parts of the world?
Right.
Are there any success stories that Nigeria could learn from?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's no need to reinvent the wheel here.
Right.
There are valuable insights to be gleaned from other counterterrorism efforts. Take Colombia, for example.
Okay.
They managed to dismantle the FARC rebels.
Right.
Not just through military pressure, but also through negotiations
Yeah.
and social and economic programs aimed at reintegrating former fighters.
So a multifaceted approach.
Yeah,
Just like we're discussing for Nigeria.
exactly.
Any other examples that come to mind?
The Philippines' efforts against Abu Sayyaf
Okay.
offer another interesting case study. They combined military operations with community-based initiatives,
Right.
really focusing on addressing those local grievances that fueled recruitment.
Yeah.
They empowered communities to resist the pull of the extremists, to take back control of their own destinies.
It seems like the biggest takeaway here
Yeah,
is that lasting solutions go beyond just military might.
absolutely.
You need to address the root causes of extremism,
Right.
give people hope for a better future, and empower them to be part of the solution.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about building a society that is resilient to extremist ideologies. And that means understanding the underlying grievances,
Right.
addressing them, and offering a more compelling vision for the future.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah,
Domestically, at least.
right,
But we can't forget that Lakurawa doesn't respect borders.
right.
They're operating across Niger, Mali. This is a regional problem.
Right.
Absolutely. And that means a regional solution.
Okay.
No one country can tackle this alone.
So what does that look like? How can countries in the region work together to counter this threat?
Right.
What role can the international community play in supporting their efforts?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Okay.
We need to talk about intelligence sharing,
Right.
capacity building, targeted financial measures,
Okay.
and we need to explore those international partnerships that can make a real difference in this fight.
All right, so we've talked about tackling Lakurawa within Nigeria, but they're not exactly sticking to one country, are they?
No, not at all.
This feels like a problem that needs neighbors
Yeah,
and maybe even the whole world to pitch in.
right.
What's the international angle here?
You hit the nail on the head. Lakurawa is a transnational threat,
Right.
and that means international partnerships are absolutely vital in this fight.
Okay.
No single country
Yeah.
can effectively go in alone against terrorism that crosses borders. We need collaboration,
Okay.
and we need it in a few key areas.
All right.
And intelligence sharing, capacity building, and those targeted financial measures that can really hit these groups where it hurts.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure.
What does that kind of collaboration actually look like on the ground?
Well, imagine real-time intel flowing between Nigeria and its neighbors.
Okay.
Niger and Mali, for example.
Right.
They share what they know about Lakurawa's movements, their networks,
Right.
potential attacks. Suddenly you're closing those gaps that groups like this exploit, making it a lot harder for them to slip through the cracks.
Makes sense. Cut off the head of the snake, so to speak.
Right.
But what about that capacity building you mentioned?
Training and resources to bolster Nigeria's security forces.
Okay, so like...
Specialized training in counterinsurgency tactics,
Right.
intelligence analysis, and border security.
Right.
Basically giving those on the front lines
Yeah.
the tools and knowledge they need to take the fight to Lakurawa.
Right, leveling up the playing field.
Exactly.
But it's not just about military might, is it?
No, it's not.
What about those communities caught in the crossfire?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Think humanitarian assistance for those displaced by the violence,
Right.
or supporting programs that counter Lakurawa's poisonous propaganda. They can work within communities, using education and outreach to help people resist the pull of extremism. It's not about copying and pasting strategies wholesale,
Right.
but understanding the principles behind them,
Yeah.
the factors that made them successful, and then adapting those lessons to the specific context of Nigeria and the Lakurawa Strait.
Right.
It's about taking the best tools from the global toolbox
Right.
and putting them to work.
So it's a complex picture.
Yeah.
No easy solutions.
Right.
But it feels like there are paths forward.
I think so.
Domestically and internationally, it's going to take sustained commitment, resources,
Yeah.
and cooperation.
Right.
But it can be done.
It has to be done.
Right.
The stakes are simply too high to ignore.
Yeah.
If Lakurawa is allowed to expand unchecked, the consequences could be devastating, not just for Nigeria, but for the entire region.
Yeah.
We're talking about the potential for widespread instability,
Right.
human suffering,
Yeah.
and the growth of a safe haven for extremists. This isn't just a Nigerian problem.
Right.
It's a global one.
So for our listener out there taking this all in,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of this complex threat,
Right.
what's the key takeaway? What should they be thinking about as they follow this story unfolding?
I think the most important thing to remember is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. There's no quick fix here.
Right.
We need to think long-term, commit to addressing the root causes of extremism,
Right.
and understand that lasting solutions require collaboration on all levels, governments, communities, international partners.
Yeah.
Everyone has a role to play in building a more secure and resilient future.
Right.
And the more we understand the complexities of the threat, the better equipped we'll be to support those efforts.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
That's right.
And awareness is the first step towards action.
Exactly.
We'll keep digging into this story as it develops. But for now, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, stay curious.